Recording in progress. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to thank you, Chair Brent. That's a good way to handle it since it sounds like it is actually related to an item on the agenda. But I would ask Lynn if you could submit any information you have or background to the planning department because I'm not aware of that. That way we can work with the chair to agendize as appropriate in the future. And Susie, I don't know if you saw my chat. Can you make sure the YouTube stream has been started? Thank you. Thanks.
Recording in progress.
And Chair Brent, sorry, one moment, just for the record. When usually if it's not unanimous, we'll note who voted what. And so what I heard was the motion was made by Jeff Strucker and Margie, were you the one who seconded that? Thank you. And then the vote was 4-1 with Committee Member Langberg voting no. Everyone else voting yes. Okay, thank you. I can give a brief summary of how we've handled the public meeting before. So I believe in our call, we have about a month for the chosen finalists to put together, as you noted earlier, the presentation, maquette, whatever it might be for a public meeting. We will, in this case, want to invite the board members of regional parks, since they are the coordinating partner and the landowner for the project site. And I have been in communication with regional parks. They were very excited on the number of proposals we got and excited about the process. In the past, we have done a public meeting at the Art Center for that. And then after that also, sorry, so we've done it as a public art meeting in the evening. I know this group at your prior meeting had talked about having it actually be part of one of your PAC meetings. So I think that's another option that would be great. Chair Brent, if you could lead the committee in discussion of what your thoughts are on that. I don't recall. I think it was a weeknight during the week. I'm not quite sure. I think it was like a Wednesday night. Doesn't necessarily need to be that, however. I will say the last couple meetings or presentations we've had have not been terribly well attended. So I wouldn't necessarily just go back on what was done before, because maybe there's something around that time that is not working for folks. Yeah, it's not quite weekly. It's about bi-weekly. We will certainly get it in that with images of the finalists. And normally what we've done is we've put the finalists up on our website so that folks can see what their proposals are. And then we do also do a after the presentation, so that they've had their mock-ets or whatever their presentation is, have those at the library for at least a couple of weeks with the survey, so that those who might not be able to attend the community meeting, a lot of the members of the public come through the library and can make any comments or suggestions or preferences. And then we go ahead and scan those and provide those to the Public Art Committee, and that would be before your May meeting. So I was just gonna say, I did look at the call, and we note that the presentation would be about 40 days after the finalists were selected. So that would be sometime in the week of April 15th-ish. And then Public Art Committee recommendation, April to May, and then City Council approval of that in May. And so we are on schedule for that. Correct. The 14th of May. Yeah, I think, it said estimated 40 days. I think you would want to give at least 30, but that April 17th, that's basically 40. So I think that's perfect. The 24th would also be fine. Uh, well, and I think they can continue to be displayed. But yes, Susie would we would ask for the comment box, which is how we've done it in the past, the comment box to be given to us the 8th of probably the 8th. So Susie can go ahead and all we've done is sort of scan the comments and provide them as public comments to the PAC. So you guys can all have a chance over that weekend before your meeting to look through them.
Thursday in 2 days and setting it on the base which is prepared for it. A fairly straightforward thing. Jeff, would you update us on Merca?
Excuse me,
Yes.
could I just interrupt one moment and backtrack a second? Who's going to be contacting the 3 artists for
Good,
this,
good
for this
thought.
information?
Yes.
So we can make sure we're on
And
track.
what we want to say specifically to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before we move on away from that.
I think that a phone call is in order for those. And I will do that so that there's some consistency, but we want to be able to chat with the artists about how they envision doing that, whether they want to build a maquette. We need to chat with the daughters about, what they want to do, maybe a large poster of photos or something so that there's something the public can sink their teeth into. So I will make those phone calls directly.
Okay, and then,
Is that-
and to alert them about the library site.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, we had online comments as well.
Ah,
And perhaps in letting them know about it, they will also want to let people know about
sure,
the
yeah.
meeting.
It's
So
just
how
open.
was the online comment part done? Is that a link that would be in the newsletter? What?
It was announced at the meeting, it was posted on the screen and all the other ways, yes.
Okay, so Susie, you need to give us a link that people could go to leave a comment that we'll publicize everywhere we can. Okay?
Yeah, and generally what we've done in the past is put the 3 proposals that were submitted for the 3 finalists up on the website and do either like a Survey Monkey, quick kind of a survey, or a comment. And Susie, I'm not as familiar with the new website. I don't know if that's something we can do where people have the ability to submit a comment on that particular item.
I'll try to find out.
Okay. Yeah, with our new website, we may be able to do it without the Survey Monkey, where it just comes into us as an email,
That'd be
And-
great.
which would actually probably be easier than the Survey Monkey survey, because then Susie will just be getting them as they come in.
Will we be able to post photos from the presentations on the city website for that?
Yes, that's something that Susie is our website administrator for the planning department and various committees, and she's our resident expert and able to do that.
I was looking at her when I asked the question.
Yes, we should be able to do that.
Great. I think that's great because it gives people a lot more opportunity than to participate if it's on
Yeah,
the city website.
Then there's a link, there's the city website,
Yeah.
there's the box at the library.
Mhm.
All good.
Also, the artists might want to send in other photos or images for the public to get a better idea of their.
Yeah, I'll
their
just
proposal.
discuss how they
Yes,
want to
Yeah.
present.
they could add.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so I was going to share about Mirka Nastor's piece. You remember for the CSG called Wheels of Peace. The previous location for her piece, which was outdoors as well, it incurred damage from all the weather we've had. So she's been looking into suppliers and shipping times to see how quickly she could get it repaired and get turned around so that it could be installed in the CSG. She's kind of awaiting our discussion of this, so I can get back to her as soon as possible and let her know, yeah, go for it. We can allow your piece a little additional time to get installed. Right now, she's hoping she could get it finished by the end of April, but maybe even sooner. And that's kind of where it stands right now.
Wait,
Well-
are you saying that the piece or something very much like it was destroyed by the weather?
The polypropylene
Yeah.
strips where there were words written,
Yeah.
etc., were damaged. Those were damaged. They were torn. The printing was
By the weather?
incoherent.
But
Yes.
that's what a concern is of ours, that these things are going to be out in the weather. So,
But this
yeah.
is not a permanent installation, and that one has been installed more for longer than we are offering there. I don't know how old the piece is, but more than 2 years old. And so it had,
But okay, I'm just
Okay.
concerned about the materials notwithstanding.
I understand, but it's a temporary installation at
2
the
years.
CSG. Yes, I understand. 2 years is temporary. So I'm going to skip to 5D, the art installation policy after selection. Now, we already have a policy about damage to a piece. We let the artist know, and the artist has 48 hours. We just adopted this
Yeah.
to deal with the problem. So if there is damage after that piece is installed, then that's the rule that would apply. What we have never discussed is choosing a piece for the CSG and then finding out, and brings up the example, that the piece is not ready to install. And do we need a policy? What would that policy be? Is there a limit to how long the artist has to make the installation after being chosen? I'm looking for thoughts here.
Well, I think also, I'm just concerned, about its relationship to the weather and, if it's not ready, but what if it's shown to be not durable? And 2
Then we
years
can
is
ask-
not a short period of time.
Well, then we can ask her to remove it.
I think we do need whatever, an addendum or something to include whether or not the piece is ready as per expected.
And
So I-
so was this a period of time
Yeah.
that the artist has to install it? And I mean,
Well, it could depend upon the piece and what happens and why it is delayed. I mean, there needs to be some flexibility, I would assume. I think it'd be kind of tricky to put in to our agreement that we have just a certain amount of time. Maybe you could just read, working with the artist to determine the amount of time expected for the delay.
well, we could have a case-by-case
I
basis.
think so. 'Cause
Or we could say, if it's not installed in 60 days, then everybody gets to rethink it.
I was going to add that, so the PAC accepted this piece.
Mhm.
And I think we have to apply the same guidelines to this piece as the others. So it's not to say that the other pieces that we've approved that have been installed might not incur some damage too down the way. So I would suggest we agendize that addendum, that we don't necessarily have to apply it right now to Mirka's piece because she's in the understanding that,
It wouldn't
was
apply to
accepted.
her. I want to be clear then.
okay,
If we have a policy, she's already done.
Mhm.
She just brings up the notion that we didn't have a policy to cover the issue.
Yeah.
So she would not be covered by any decision we make now.
right.
But
And she's
they-
been operating under good faith.
Mhm.
She
She
has.
wants to get this piece finished, so she needs to hear from us. Are we going to allow her a little more time to get that finished and then installed?
Right. And I think that at this point, that's up to her when she figures it. But I think this is a good time to at least draft an addendum since it's in front of us and we don't, we want to just keep agendizing it
Right.
because we have the opportunity thanks to what's happened with her piece.
Now, the other consideration, and happily, Mirka's piece, she's going to install it herself. But we're paying for this tractor.
Mhm.
And they sent 2 guys in the tractor who were there for 2 hours, and nobody has still told us how much they're charging us for that. And the tractor needs to come back again on Thursday to do Robert Smith's piece, because it just couldn't all be made to happen at the same time because of the weather affecting building the base because of the glue. So it is what it is, but, the policy, since the city changed their policy about charging us for city services, we want, when we make choices for that, to be as efficient as possible.
Sure.
So that's part of the thinking about this. We really don't want to have the situation that we have with Mirka had we needed a third time to bring a tractor.
Mhm. Yeah. It's cumbersome. But it's, as you say, it is what it is. So we're dealing with it that way. And that, I don't know whether we want to start including extra costs that we are incurring because this city has changed their policy, which would or would not influence their flexibility in fixing their pieces, whatever. I mean, I don't know how detailed we have to get.
I think I lean toward the notion that if the piece can't be installed within 60 days of when we accept it, then we can change our mind. And that's all that policy needs to be.
It sounds feasible to me. 60 days seems
We can continue
fair.
to work with the artist, or we can say, this
Mhm.
does not look like it's working, and so we're going to rescind the acceptance.
Mhm. Yeah, it could reveal some extra reasons. Yeah, I think 60 days is
It would
fair.
just be our option. Does anybody have any other thoughts about that? Sound workable? Can I have a motion?
I'll move that we allow a new addendum to the loan agreement or the contract, the installation policy that reads that if there's a delay in installation, the artist has 60 days to comply.
what's the remedy needs to be in there too.
What do you mean? Oh,
They have 60 days to be
to,
ready
to
install.
prepare for installation, for actual installation on site.
Or
after
we
which-
can rescind the acceptance.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Do we want to consider it all, how to deal with the costs of, not for her, but in the future, for then additional costs for the equipment and the
Should-
labor?
Should the changes
Well, I mean, so what are you?
require that?
What are you thinking? You want to deduct from their 250 or what are we?
I don't know. I just think that we need to consider that and decide at this point how we feel about that.
Well,
Yeah, the-
I think we make every effort to schedule it on one day, and if
Yeah.
it can't happen, it might be out of our control, right? If it's
and
weather
I think we just
related.
grit our teeth about that and hopefully the city will get through this financial crisis in a nominally short period of time, which they think is 3 to 5 years.
Uh-oh. I wouldn't,
And they can be more generous with us.
uh-huh. Wishful thinking.
Or we can get a volunteer backhoe driver to do it.
Something.
I know a bunch of those guys.
And then
Okay.
there's insurance.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is it clear enough to you, Suzie? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None.
I'm abstaining from this one.
Okay, excuse me, 4 and an abstention. So back to C, the NedCon update.
Thank you. So
Well,
the, what,
sorry, on 5B, we have installation opening event signage on the agenda.
Oh, excuse me, thank you. Installation we've taken care of, but an opening event, the signage, Suzie, I saw correspondence. I gather that's being handled.
I emailed the artist today about what name and the
Exactly
art
what the
titles.
place should be.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, so those little plaques,
Yes,
Mhm.
those.
do we have that budgeted?
I don't know what that would mean. We just have to spend what we have to spend in order to do what we do until we run out and can't do anything.
we do have budget for the plaques.
Yeah.
That is part of what we budget for when we do these types of things. So Susie is coordinating with DNS Awards, the same kind of plaques we had last time. That's the standardization that we had settled on. For those that are on the platforms or the pedestals, those obviously will go in those specific locations. And our public works crew does know how to uninstall and install the new ones on those. And I believe, Chair Brent, you were going to coordinate with
Yeah, when
The-
Mirka does her installation, we'll look at how to do it.
Perfect, great. So we'll provide that plaque, but it'll be up to her to figure out how to install that. And it sounded like that was what she was fine with.
So the opening event for it, we were talking about coordinating that with an opening at the Art Center. And I don't have those dates, so I will come back with that either by email or at the next meeting. And I'll clarify that when I talk to them about a meeting date for the 3 major sculptures. Okay?
Thank you.
So are we good? On to NedCon?
Oh, you mean going forward? Yeah, I'm sure curious.
What do we know?
So thank you. We are on item C now, the NedCon update.
Yes.
I have been in communication with Ned, and obviously the wet weather that we've been having has, they do need to wait on the installation of the foundation for that a little bit. And I am communicating with him. We've gotten the encroachment permit in and it's been reviewed, but there are some additional pieces of information that our Public Works Department needs for that. And we have not received that back from, I think it's Gary Contracting is the foundation folk. And so I did communicate that with Ned so that he could follow up with them as well. We've tried contacting the foundation folks a couple of times and haven't heard back. And so that is where that is at. I don't know. I mean, obviously it depends upon how quickly the rains subside for the ground to dry out enough for the foundation work. I did ask Ned this morning if he had any understanding of that. I have not yet heard back on that.
Does the sculpture exist?
He has been fabricating that. I have not seen the final photos, but he was starting fabrication at his workshop in Santa Rosa.
And if I may ask a stupid question, all the costs of the base, the contractors, all these various things all come out of the $40,000 commission?
Yeah. So he has a contract with the city. And that has remained the same with the change from the Caltrans right of way to this one. And that was actually part of the change, is that the Caltrans requirements were causing the cost to spiral along with COVID and some of the other inflationary factors. That's why this new site was chosen. The building permit encroachment fees, the city waives those for our own projects, so those are not being charged to the project. But yes, the foundation and the installation with the crane, those are costs that are part of Ned's contract. So he invoices us for that, and then we for the contract.
Thank you.
Yep.
Move on. Any other comments or thoughts about Ned's progress? Agenda items for future meetings?
Well, do we want to do D, which is the art installation policy discussion?
That was what we just, that was the motion that you made about 60 days.
Oh, there's nothing else? Because that
No.
was, the 60-day thing was kind of new, so there's nothing else?
Yes, otherwise we have that.
Oh,
I mean, that was the only intention of that
oh,
discussion thing. Okay. June 20th. That's the one I would like to tie it to. So June 20th, which is should be a Saturday. Is it?
for what?
Thursday.
Opening, excuse me.
It's a
I didn't
Thursday.
know we were doing that.
That's interesting.
June 20th?
That's an opening day at the Art Center.
Well, they may still have the opening on the 22nd, but I will find out. But that's the show that I see us tying our opening to.
What is the show?
It's called Reverberations, and that show is the one where they curate pieces from collectors' collections, and there will be some very major big insurance, bring their own installers, nobody touches this painting except our guys kind of stuff. So that opening should draw quite a crowd. And so their publicity about that particular opening will be far in excess of what they normally do.
And Margie, thinking of your expertise, each work will be paired with a poem.
Right.
Wow,
Yeah, so
Really?
poets are being commissioned to write a poem about each of the
Oh, yeah,
pieces.
they've done
And the
that.
poems and a picture of the work are collected in a book, which will be for sale.
Very nice.
Yeah,
They've done this before.
they have
Yeah.
done it
Uh-huh.
before.
This is the
Very
third one.
successful.
Third
Yeah.
one?
Very
And
successful.
they were looking for billboard publicity and all kinds of stuff. They really want the art center to be on the Bay Area map for this show every 2 years.
Great.
So then tentatively, following Robert's discussion with the SCA, we might be looking at Saturday, June 22nd.
So, yeah, I'll find out. when they're actually planning to do it.
Mhm.
If it's not daytime, then we can't really do that.
Well, we could do it, if it's in the evening, we could do it in the afternoon of that day.
We could, but that crowd won't be there.
It could be right before
Yeah.
their beginning.
That would
I
be
will
nice.
discuss with them what they're comfortable with, but of course, in June, it's late. It is. It's gonna be
I was going to say that is about summer solstice, so it will be light until about
That is
8:30 or
the
so.
lightest day of the year.
But we want to tie their opening to our CSG opening.
Yes.
So what, doesn't matter what time of day it is, does it?
Well,
It only that it's not dark.
their openings
Yes.
are like 4 to 6 or
Right,
something, or 6 to
exactly.
8.
Yeah.
Can I digress a second and go back to the art installation policy, because I'm confused about its status. And maybe it was in the minutes and I missed it, and maybe it was happening when I wasn't here. But is that okay with you if I ask a question? Has that been adopted, and the attorney and the city and all that stuff has been approved and it's 100% ready to go other than our new 60-day installation
You're talking about the
addendum?
loan agreement?
Yeah,
Okay.
the art installation, yeah, is that the same thing as the loan agreement?
No, but
Okay,
it would be added to it, I expect.
Yeah, it would be added to it.
But it would not affect this current group because it wasn't there.
right, that was one of my questions. It's not retroactive, that's
No,
for
no.
sure. Okay, so from now on then, every activity we have includes this policy and loan agreement, is that correct?
Well,
Mhm.
every new sculpture, yes.
Yes, okay.
So on the agenda for the next meeting, we need to discuss the 2 empty sculpture bases. And when we want to issue a new call, we might all look at the submissions, at these submissions, and see whether any of those appear to be finished pieces that we might offer that as a place that they could be put, since we didn't accept them for
I think
the,
we should not offer it to everyone and not only specific ones.
we could do that. So anyway, next meeting, we're gonna think about how we want to do that. And I would like us to talk about, I want to understand what the parameters are that we need to operate under, whether we can identify something, and only as an example, the bench that
Diego Harris.
would go along. Let's say that we don't accept his sculpture, but we go back to him and say, but if you have that bench, we would love to see it in the sculpture garden, and put it on the other side of the path in that little alcove. Do we get to do that?
I don't know if Carrie can answer that.
Well, if we don't
Thanks.
accept his piece, then he's with all the others that we would open up.
Well,
Consideration
but they were separate calls. Can we offer a place in the CSG without the whole call procedure? That's what I'm trying to understand.
I believe you can. So the public art ordinance that governs this body is actually pretty non-specific on how you might select pieces. We can email that out, or send a link of that out to you all, especially in advance of next month's, so when you can discuss that. So you can't decide that right now, but you can certainly agendize that for the next meeting. And I know Margie had already sort of identified that those folks would definitely be folks you wanted to outreach to for the sculpture garden and the remaining pedestals there. Whether you do that as an open call or just that subset is, I believe, up to you all as a group, how you want to do that. If you're wanting to select, hey, we didn't select you for this, however, would you like to show it here? Yeah, your ordinance does not prohibit you from doing that. It would just need to be done at a public meeting and approved by city council with the loan agreement as you've now modified at this meeting.
So am I hearing you correctly? Because it wasn't agendized, we can't discuss it. we could discuss it without a motion, but we can't do either, correct?
So let me just look at what the agenda for today says. For the sculpture garden installation, it's more the installation update. It isn't about how to handle the empty sculptures. So how to handle the empty sculptures is not agendized. You are right now talking about putting that on your next agenda, and you would need to hold any discussion for that.
We're gonna have something to talk about next meeting.
Well, I've got something. Because I'm going to go back to this loan agreement installation policy for a minute. Because this Joe Rodota Trail sculpture piece is going to include the loan agreement and the installation policy. Is that correct?
Actually, Barbara, may I interrupt?
Oh, anytime you want.
No, I want to be clear. The commissioned art pieces are handled very differently from the volunteer sculptures. The loan agreement is basically the liability waiver and the volunteer sculpture kind of stuff. We have a formal contract that is approved by city council for the commissioned art because they are required to have the full insurance requirements. You know, we're paying them $25,000 to $35,000 depending on the commission. They are required to have the insurance. Most of them are unique for the city of Sebastopol, not something that's already made that has been submitted. And so what we have asked in those calls is for them to submit a schedule. And then that schedule, once they finalize it, would be part of the contract that's approved.
That's the installation policy.
Yeah, so that is, so
And
the commissioned artwork is just a
clarify,
whole different
When
beast.
we buy that sculpture, we own it.
Yeah.
So the
Right.
artist is no longer
Okay.
responsible for it, right?
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification. That helps a lot. But I'm also then going to talk about the loan agreement for a minute.
Yeah.
When does an artist receive the loan agreement?
Before, it needs to be signed and in our hands before the installation
Okay,
date.
good, because in my experience, there have been artists who were in disagreement to a loan agreement and pulled out. So just so they have enough time to be able to do so, and we're not blindsided by being at an installation site, they hand us their loan agreement, or they say, wait a minute, I didn't know this. I don't
Well,
want to do it now.
We were a little tardy because we were writing it during the period, we told them and then we wrote that. And then we sent it to them and said, and by the way, you need to sign this. And I actually got Peter Crompton's signature at his house as I was helping him load the sculpture.
Okay, well, that's good.
But
great.
in future,
Right.
when
It
we
will-
accept a sculpture for the CSG, the acceptance email will have that attached.
Okay, good, because before the installation. Got it. All right.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and in fact, you can actually attach that to the call, just like we have
I
the
think so.
liability waiver submitted
Absolutely.
as part of their submission. Then you have it, or they don't need to necessarily fill out the loan agreement because you don't necessarily know the dates. But that way they can be aware of what they will be required to sign.
Good. I think that's a great idea to have this as a policy or a procedure.
Oh, yeah.
That be how we handle it.
No, it's a document
Okay.
we were missing, and thank
Right,
you for working so hard on it.
Well, good, but I'm just glad that we know when we're going to submit it to the artist.
Immediately
So-
on acceptance
Okay, great. Thank you.
and in the call.
In the
They-
call,
They can have read it before they're even
That would
even
definitely
submit.
agreed to
Yeah,
have.
they should. They should.
Yeah.
So that they can, if it doesn't agree with their ways of doing business, then we know ahead of time.
I have two suggestions for future agendas.
Please.
So the first one is, I'd like us to have a further discussion about communications with the county on this Southern Gateway site and the maintenance that will be needed in preparation for the artist's installation. I just think we want to stay ahead of the game on that. If any of you have seen that site recently, it definitely needs some work. So I would just like to see us discuss that. So we're on the cutting edge there.
Well, you bring that up. Carrie, what does City Public Works think is their responsibility after the city buys and installs a sculpture for the area around it? City Services now mows the lawn at the CSG. And do they assume a similar responsibility then on the new sculpture site?
So the new sculpture site is actually maintained by regional parks, and I believe they do mow that area. But our public works would not be going out to mow that or maintain that specifically. They would be done by regional parks just as part of their regular maintenance schedule.
I'm not clear that Regional Parks has ever maintained that spot.
And that's why we should put it on the agenda for discussion and find out if they have a schedule for visiting that site. And if they don't,
Yes.
they should.
Or-
And perhaps the scheduling should even be more frequent than they currently have it.
It might, and they might have the attitude that, hey, it's your sculpture, you guys figure it out.
Or now there's a reason for them to mow it. There's something there instead of that old bench.
Well,
Could be a
and
request.
the bench is part of the discussion in a way. I mean, I think it's
Mhm.
this is a
Mm.
discussion also for the artists, the finalists, or maybe the final person who gets chosen is what, Diego wants to do a bench, or we talked about a bench. Does someone do a new bench? Does that bench get thrown out? Does anything else change in the site? There's two, funny little paths, and then there's the big trail, right?
Right.
So I think, to me, that should be part of the bigger discussion with the artist, and then moving forward with the parks people.
Good idea. Better late than never.
Yeah, and I do know that Regional Parks does do trail maintenance, because I actually see them on the West County Trail all the time, and I know they do that similar trail maintenance at Joe Rodota. They don't just, only do the West County Trail and not Joe Rodota. So we can talk with them and find out what their assumed maintenance or general maintenance is, so that we can have that as part of the discussion at the next meeting.
So Susie, you have that for future. Thank you.
Can I just add one other thing? So at the library, we got to upgrade the building as part of putting a sculpture on the wall. And that came at some cost, which I guess the city bore that cost, or the library did, I don't know. But it's kind of a similar example, right? We're not just going to throw a sculpture in the weeds at the end of the trail. We want it to look really good and prepare the whole thing.
Right,
We did
so-
it at the library.
Yeah, so the site development, is that part of the contract? And let's, for the sake of conversation and nothing more, the Bruce Johnson piece has a concrete base that it comes with, and they will move the base and the sculpture. Does that require a permit? Is a permit only needed if one of the other ones wants to dig a hole and pour concrete in it? Does that require a permit? When I call these three artists, what am I saying to them about those issues?
What I can do now that we have the finalists, is work with either John or Susie to send those to. It would be the county who would be determining whether or not it needs a permit. The JAA proposal, which was not selected, I would have assumed that probably would need a permit, because it was much more structural. I'm not sure the others would. Generally sculptures, just like the ones in the sculpture garden, they're small enough that they don't require a permit. But I would want to check with the county, since they would be the final decision on that.
Is that something you can do for us so we'll know at the next meeting?
Yep.
All right, that would be an agenda item to understand what the county expects and will do.
And then my second.
Yeah, and we'll be sending the three finalists as an update to regional parks as well. And so I'll probably just ask them directly, hey, I'm not sure what your permitting process is. Can you, because they'll probably be much more responsive to regional parks, let us know if any of these would need permits, and they'll be helpful in coordinating that, I believe.
Thanks, Gary. The second suggestion would be to revisit trying to determine another gateway.
Yes.
We've discussed that in the past, of
Mhm.
course, but without any conclusive decisions. So I would recommend we agendize that as well.
We might as well discuss, God knows when anybody will build something that puts more money in our coffer so we could consider it, but we might as well be prepared.
Exactly, that's my thought.
Well, it may be a little early in the sense that after going through the whole number 3, selection and installation and so on, there may be some information and ideas that come up that will be relevant to the next project. And we won't know those until afterwards. So we want to do preliminary, but I keep that in mind.
We're hoping they build that roundabout.
Oh, no, we
We're
don't.
hoping. I have
Not
Yeah,
another
let's put
item.
roundabout on
when
the,
you-
on the agenda.
Go ahead, Margie.
Okay, so my item is. Where's my notes?
Hate roundabout.
Here it is. I would like the committee to discuss and consider an addendum to the loan agreement and for the future that would include the option for sculptors to apply for an open-ended continuation of their sculpture in the CSG that would include the option for the artist or the city to remove the sculpture for whatever kind of reason, and also include that the artist would have the same responsibilities ongoing in terms of maintenance and so
I'm
on.
sorry, Margie, I do not understand you at
I
all.
don't either. I don't know what you mean.
Okay, let's
When
try
you
it
say
again.
open-ended, I don't
Yeah.
know what that means. Are you
Um,
talking about offering them a permanent?
Permanent with caveats, yes,
At the CSG.
at the CSG.
With one of the existing,
That
Sites?
they can, if they have been accepted in the CSG, so they're installed now, or future people who might
oh,
be
you're
installed.
changing the timing, the
Making that
duration.
an option,
Uh-huh.
that they can apply for an additional option, which is,
Isn't that in the loan
permanent.
agreement?
no, they have to renew every 2 years.
Oh, that's right. Oh.
So what
oh,
I'm saying is that
Oh.
rather than having to apply every 2 years, that they could apply to have it permanent, but they would still have same responsibilities for maintenance and so on.
I want to clarify,
Yeah.
that is not what the loan agreement says.
I know this would be an addendum.
But
So-
just to clarify what the
Yes.
loan agreement does say,
Yes,
it says for 2 years and blank additional 2-year periods by mutual consent.
yes.
And I filled that in as 1.
Well, you could, but couldn't you fill it in as?
One additional
More than one?
2-year period. You could,
Mhm.
but we had not discussed it. I'm standing there with a piece of paper and Peter Crumpton has the pen in his hand and not wanting to take undue liberty, I wrote 1 there. That does not mean that he couldn't reapply after that in a new call, or that we might not amend how we do things in between, but that blank was there in your document and had to be filled in, and so I did.
I thought we had agreed that they would not have to go back into a call. They could apply to continue without having to go through the whole.
Okay, well, when you say,
reread that.
when you say apply, I, again, don't know what that is. If we want it to stay, we call them up and say, would you like it to be there for another 2 years? They say, yes, it's done.
Can we
And
amend?
they called us up or contacted us and say, can I be there for another 2 years?
And then we say, we will have a motion on that at our next meeting.
That they would not have to go through the call. I think there was at either his last meeting or the meeting before.
Yeah, I
that we
remember discussing
streamlined
that
it
as
for
well.
them.
Mhm.
We can have on the agenda a clarification of that line in the document as to
Okay. And I
what
would
all
like-
we mean and what are the procedures surrounding it.
And I would like the committee, my suggestion is that also on the agenda, this additional item, that the committee discuss the possibility of an additional addendum to the loan agreement.
Well,
So
additional
can I-
language in the loan agreement.
Well, yeah, but
Excuse me
that's
for a
like-
moment. Can I interrupt for a second? I'm reading our minutes from the January 16th meeting. And it's right here. See community sculpture garden pads, a permanent sculpture policy discussion. Mills Tyson made a motion to change the current policy so that instead of previous finalists reapplying for their sculptures to stay in the CSG, they can renew by mutual agreement with the city and the PAC. Seconded by Stucker and voted on 5-0.
That's what I'm referring to. That's different. I want us to remember that. That's one thing that was, should somehow be included there, because that's, we had, before we submitted the loan agreement, we had agreed on that. That's one. Two is something I'm suggesting for an additional discussion, an additional item. a new
Okay.
item. And I'd like
Susie,
to
are
make
you
it
clear
clear.
what she wants on the agenda?
So
Yeah, so I think, if I may, I actually have the term of the loan agreement from the current agreement up. And what I'm hearing, which would actually provide additional flexibility for, and respond to your question, Chair Brent, about the how many years, is to just to edit it this way, where it says, commencing on this date with the provision for additional 2-year extensions with approval of the artist and PAC.
Sure.
And that goes away with we have to at the outset, which would be sort of limiting future PAC decisions, how many extensions. And it could end up being permanent, renewed every 2 years. What I'm hearing Margie request is, which you could certainly do in the next call, is specify that, their artists can apply for either a 2-year and then they get it back, or a permanent placement in the sculpture garden. If it was permanent in the sculpture garden, then you would want some revision, some kind of provision that's different from this term to say, commencing on this date with no end date, but you would have some sort of, and this is how month-to-month leases and that kind of thing works, where, if the city decides it's not being maintained well, it's really aging and not weathering well, it needs to be removed, then there would be a 60-day notification to remove that piece of art, and then it would go back to the artist.
So
That's-
that's actually 2 items for the agenda for the next meeting.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can just do it all under one item, which would
Oh, that's
be
fine.
discussion of length of terms of art loan.
Yeah,
And that the artist would also, on the other side of that the city could request, even if it was agreed to be permanent, the city at any time could request, for those reasons you mentioned, for example, that it be removed by the artist. Or the artist could say, I have a buyer and I want to remove it, and they have that option.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, that's probably, there's kind of then this clause, there would be a notification date, and then within the removal of artwork, yeah, it would probably be a slightly different template, but I think there's not really an issue with if you wanted to do a call that way.
And
Okay.
the same parameters in terms of maintenance and insurance would continue.
let's not over discuss what we're actually
Thank
agendizing
you.
for the next meeting.
It's almost as if it's TBD, to be determined per situations between the artist and the city.
I'd like,
I don't
Okay,
mean
well,
getting into all these things that could happen, we could snow.
Mhm.
That if we're not including it in the agreement, then does that mean it's null and void?
well, let's have that
Okay,
discussion next time.
next meeting. Madam Planning Director, do we have a report?
Yes, we do have a report. A couple of things going on. We do have a couple of items of interest at well, first of all, for those who are interested, the canopy project on the north side of town is scheduled for a public hearing with our planning commission tonight. They will be providing a recommendation to city council. It includes a subdivision, so the city council is required to do the approvals, but the planning commission provides review of and it's a use permit and a subdivision for 80 townhomes on the north side of town. That includes environmental documents and a couple other things. If it's approved by city council, it will also still need to undergo design review and tree permit review by the DRB. So it would be coming to Lars's group after that. The next city council meeting will have a long-range budget forecast for the city. The city manager is hired, and all the departments have been working with a consultant to look at those. I highly recommend that if you can, you attend that. There will be some items up for discussion. Some would impact the PAC in terms of how your meetings are run, the amount of support from staff, that type of thing. As you're aware, we are in a fiscal emergency, and so we are looking at a number of different options for that. And that report will be out later this week, so you'll be able to see what those options are. But one of them is looking at, are there different ways to operate the public art committee in the future?
Carrie, when is that? You're saying that's at a city council meeting, that presentation?
That will be next Tuesday's city council meeting.
Okay, thank you.
We will also have at that meeting nominees for the Living Peace Wall and Design Review Board member interviews and appointments. Sorry, interviews and appointments. It is usually out by either Thursday or Friday the week before, so that would be this Thursday or Friday.
Is that an agenda item that's up for public discussion, input?
Yeah, it will be a regular agenda item, so the city council will be able to discuss, and the public comment will be taken on the items. I'm not sure what other departments and other forecast components are going to be, but I do know that one of the questions is there a way to do the public art committee a little bit more in conjunction with the art center and some of those possibilities.
I have a question in that regard, actually. And from your point of view, Carrie, is it a valid discussion for the PAC to have, looking at potentially future monies coming from residential developments in the city?
It could be a discussion. I don't see the support there from council.
If I may, I have had that conversation verbally, personally, with both the mayor and the vice mayor, and they both looked at me like, are you out of your mind?
Thank you, Chair. I have not had those conversations, but that was my read as well.
It
So.
was nonetheless suggested that I write an email with that proposal, which would be 0.5% on residential developments over 10 units to the city manager and to Mary Gorley.
And you could, I would state, for residential developments that are market rate housing. It's not
Yeah.
not low income housing, that right?
Something. Yeah, yes. I've been hesitant, but sure, I'll do that.
So I will note,
We're
if the
gonna run
committee
out of-
wanted to,
Well, is there a policy about the PAC fundraising itself, to support itself?
I don't believe so. I don't think that would be an issue. However, you would need to look at how you could do that without staff support, because obviously using staff time to do that type of thing is not going to go over well in the current environment.
Without staff support, but just maybe listing things on the websites.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Without staff support necessarily, but just listing things on the website beyond that.
That's some staff support.
Is that support?
Well, some who puts it on the website,
Okay,
staff.
all right.
Is the subtext here, they want to disband the Public Arts Committee and hand its responsibilities to the Sebastopol Center for the Arts?
That is a possibility that I think they're going to be discussing. I myself have not seen the final report, but I have been talking with our city manager about the various options and yeah, how to work with the various committees and reduce the city cost to them is the intent of the discussion item.
Can I clarify something with you, Carrie? So you're saying that a report is going out this week and with recommendations for the 19th city council meeting, and that we would have time in between Thursday and that next Tuesday to respond to the city council and the city manager, et cetera.
Correct.
In preparation of that meeting on the 19th. On the 19th, will they be making decisions as a result of their report?
I believe it's a regular agenda item, so they can provide direction.
Okay, so we need to move quickly if that report has any impact upon our committee. I know it does on other, like the senior center and stuff. So we have those few days to contact our city council, et cetera.
Right. So yeah, Barbara, you're exactly right. It's the same conversation as the potential senior center changes.
So, and you
Yep.
can email ahead of the meeting,
Yes.
or you can show up to the
But we
meeting and
need to
public comment.
we need to be aware of that report and respond, all of us,
Mhm.
right? I mean, that's a big deal if they're starting to make major changes on this committee
When you say
recommendations.
respond all of us, how would we be just responding each one individually? Is that-
Correct. You cannot agendize
Cannot
this
discuss it?
because it's not on your agenda.
Right, so we're just citizens. Is
Right.
that right?
Well, you're citizens, and you could say you're on the
Member of
pack,
the- right.
and 5 emails are better than one
Oh,
as
for
far
sure.
as
Are we-
volume coming to the council.
With the Brown Act, are we allowed any 2 members allowed to discuss this?
Correct. Yes.
Correct. Any two
can-
members could discuss it, but of course you can all individually respond. And actually, that does bring me back to Chair Brent's comment about and Committee Member Strucker's or Vice Chair Strucker's comment about the residential impact fee. And of course, you are all welcome to, as individuals, comment to your council members. And if you wanted to do that as a pack, as a recommendation, then it would need to be agendized and voted on at a future meeting.
And how are we going to be aware of the report? Do we have to take the responsibility of finding it through the website? The report that'll be out on Thursday? How will we know?
So that does get posted to the website. If you were signed up for subscribe for city updates for city council, you will get an email saying an update for you when it's posted and a link to the meeting materials.
Well, can we just request that it be emailed to each of us? Is that a difficult thing?
Well, the problem is I don't know when it's going to be. I'm not responsible for posting it. I don't know when it will be posted.
Well,
Whenever.
And I don't want you all to have to rely on me to be able to get out there on a Thursday or Friday when I'm not working. If it's Thursday, I'm sure Susie can forward it to you, but I would say, and I'll just show you very quickly how to do it.
well, Susie, are you the one who posts it?
No, it's the
Oh.
city clerk. We are not responsible for posting the city council agendas.
So,
On the city website, which I have up now, if you hit subscribe, you can subscribe to, here's your public art if you're interested in that. But budgets and city council meeting agendas, either one of those, or just city council meeting agendas, if you just subscribe to that or change your subscription, then you will get those. If you're not subscribed, you can do that and public art. And then every time we release a news article about the finalists for the call or the public meeting, then you would actually receive those updates as well and know what we had posted and be able to share that. So I would highly recommend, if you're not subscribed, that you subscribed at least for the public art. And obviously, you can go in and change your subscriptions at any time. So if you submit for the city council, then you would get the agenda once notice once it's posted.
Yeah, it's crucial to know what's going on.
I suspect, and the reason I'm saying it this way is I suspect, given what I know is on the agenda, our items are pretty simple in the planning department, but there's a couple of items that will probably not, the agenda probably won't be posted until Friday when Susie isn't working. So I don't want you guys to rely on us and then not get it until Monday.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, are you suggesting that we attend that meeting in person?
If you can, I think that would be great. I'm sure there will be a number of folks attending by Zoom too. So, but yes, just certainly
One or
in
the
terms of
other?
this committee, it will be an important discussion.
Yeah, one or the other. And Zoom, does Zoom have as much credibility, do you think, as sitting in the audience?
Should be the same. Say it's still 3 minutes of, you can make a 3-minute comment here or on Zoom. So it's pretty much the same. Numbers in the.
Yeah, all the public comment works exactly the same way it does for your meetings where you have, if you have someone in the audience and Zoom, where you go back and forth for public comment and whatnot. I can't tell you what council members think of people who attend in person versus via Zoom.
Is there anything else? I believe it's time for us to adjourn.
All right, thank you all. And
Recording stopped.
just to wrap, Robert, you will get back to us on a date
I will.
for that public meeting. And I will note April 14th, the Tuesday evenings are not good times because of the City Council and Planning Commission meetings that either Susie needs to be at or I need to be at.
I was looking at Wednesdays, 17th and 24th.
Yeah, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, those all work. But Wednesday would certainly be a great day for it.
Okay.
Is everyone clear about how and when to check